be extremely helpful to you, and also to be able to maybe share some feedback with us about what we can do to improve it. Also interested in hearing from you all about sort of what value this adds to your decision-making process and those kinds of things. So I wanted to just say thanks for being on, thanks for being attentive, and we're really interested in hearing from you all about your feedback, both from the EDD side and also from potentially the EDR side from my colleagues at EDA who are able to attend. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So joining me today is Michael Hollingsworth, Timothy Slaper, and Carol Rogers from the Indiana Business Research Center. So today, the webinar will go as follows. So the first part will be a demo of the tool. And then during that demo, please use the chat box to ask any questions or to give any feedback that comes to you. And we'll make sure to get to those during the feedback portion of the webinar, which will begin about 15 minutes in. So let's get started to the demo. So this is the landing page that you'll see when you open up the USA Opportunity Zones tool from Stats America. And I just wanted to show this screen to point out some stats about OZs. So the scale of the OZ program is actually quite massive. 35 million people, which is about 11% of the population, live in these Opportunity Zone tracks. And I'm sure many of you might be from an economic development district or have some experience with EDDs, and you'll be delighted to know that virtually all, 98% of all EDDs have an Opportunity Zone within them. So for the OZ tool, it's all about location. So you can use our tool to find where the OZs are in a region, a county, city, or state. You can learn about the characteristics of the population that's both living and working in an OZ. You can consider how government programs intersect with OZs. We can also aggregate data for all OZs in a particular geography. We have available congressional district, EDD, state, or EDA region. And you can also access other resources from states and the federal government about OZ investments. It's an easy tool to use. You start typing in the name of the region that you'd like, click it from the autofill list, and then zoom in to click on the zone that you'd like to see data for. So let's get started. One moment. Okay. So the landing page for the Opportunity Zone program is here. You can access it from the statsamerica.org homepage. So let's go into the tool. So the first thing you see when you open up the OZ tool is a map, and all these blue tracks shaded in are the Opportunity Zones. There are over 8,200 of them across the country. Over here in the right corner, you can choose between different layers that you'd like to add to the map. By default, Opportunity Zones are shown, but you can also highlight EDDs, congressional districts. You can also see point locations of EDA university centers. So I noticed that.
Riley,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I only see the top part of your screen. I don't know if other people are experiencing that or if it's just me. Michael, can you see it? Did you see the full tool?
There we go.
There we go. There we go.
How about now? Okay. So like I mentioned before, these are the different layers that you can add to the base map. EDDs, congressional districts, and then university centers. So I noticed that a couple of the attendees, at least a couple of the people who registered, were from Maine. And so I was kind of interested in looking up one of the 32 opportunity zones that are available in Maine. So I found this one in rural Somerset County that we're going to use as an example today. So you choose that from the autofill list, and you can also insert a city or a town, and then just click the zone that you'd like. In the hover, you can get a little basic information about the zone, but we'll scroll down to see in more detail the OZ report. So from the start, the report will give you the most important geographic information about the tract number, the county, even the nearest city, and some what we call key metrics about the zone. So what you can do here is basically compare how the population, land area, and all these other measures for this OZ compares to the average of all other OZs. And then you can see the rank out of all 8,700 of them. So one thing you might notice is that this OZ looks pretty similar to other ones. It might be a little bit smaller in terms of land area, and the poverty is actually a little bit lower. So an interesting thing to note about this zone in Maine. So as we scroll on down, you can see some information about government programs that intersect with this zone. And we think that this is one of the advantages of our tool over some others that you might see out there, is that we explicitly link OZs with other EDA investments like university centers, revolving loan funds, and the like. And you can see that information here. And if you're unfamiliar with any of these programs, you can click the link to go to the EDA site to read more about them. You can also see non-EDA government programs. So here from HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, and then also from the Small Business Administration. So moving on, we can get some more detailed demographic information on age and educational attainment. So something that stood out to me with this zone in particular was that the high prevalence of people aged 65 and over that live in this zone. And I think, I know there's been a lot written about the aging population in the state of Maine and some challenges that might present currently and in the future. So that's certainly reflected here in this OZ tract. And you can also see that this tract, compared to the US, is a little bit less educated in terms of bachelor's degrees. So that is also another challenge that presents itself through these data. And basically one thing that you can do with these is see what kind of challenges and opportunities that this tract in particular has that might be unique to this area. So moving on, we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. So what this does is it pulls in the innovation index, which is a product of the Stats America team at the IBRC from a few years ago, which uses both input and output measures of innovation and entrepreneurship to provide insight into that region's capacity for innovation. So the way to interpret this is if the index numbers for this, the tract, for the county where this tract is located in. So the innovation index are county-based measures. So this is for the entirety of Somerset County, Maine. You can see that for the most part, this county is performing pretty similarly along these innovation metrics than the median county in the US. And you can learn more about these metrics by just clicking this little info box here, or you can visit the innovation index page on Stats America. One thing that sort of stood out to me here was though that most of these were kind of near the median, this county is definitely lacking in terms of human capital and knowledge creation. And so that has to do probably in large part to the aging population. less population being of working age, which we define as 25 to 44. That's probably playing a part in that. But you'll also see that the employment and productivity index is a little bit higher than the county median. So again, we present these comparisons between this county and then other counties to sort of get an idea of the types of challenges and opportunities. So moving on to the final section of the report, we have industry and occupation mix. So what this allows you to do is to see employment and occupation distributions for this county, the county that this OZ is in. Again, these are based on the county compared to, and then you can look at the LQ to see how this might compare to the US as a whole. So the LQ is an indicator of how concentrated a region's employment is in one industry. So you can see that in some NAICS sectors like manufacturing, this region is actually quite a bit more specialized than the average US county with an LQ of 1.86. And so that might be something as an economic developer you would be interested in knowing. If your county has a large manufacturing base, then that could be an industry to target for future expansion. So the occupation mix table operates in a similar fashion, but instead of industries, you can see it by occupation. So to no surprise, the production workers occupation down here below also has a pretty high LQ. And one can imagine that many of these workers are involved in manufacturing industry. So it's not a surprise to me. But again, this is just sort of another piece of data in your arsenal as an economic developer that can help you make those strategic decisions about your region's development. So one last thing we're going to touch on before we get to the feedback is a really powerful feature, and that is the ability to aggregate by different geographies. So say you wanted to gather data on OZs for a congressperson. For example, you could use the congressional district tab to present a report for the congressional district this OZ is in. So that's congressional district 2. You can get a list of all the opportunity zones that are in this congressional district and download it in a CSV format. You can open in Excel. And what that will do is it will give you all these key metrics for each individual opportunity zone tract within that geography. So it's sort of a high level overview in addition to the ability to sort of dig into the data and to see what these measures look like for the individual zones. And then also for the different government programs, you can see what EDDs are associated with the CD. You can see if there are any university centers. And you can see a count of any revolving loan funds that are serving areas in this congressional district and easily access the organizations these RLFs are associated with. So I'm not going to go through the other geographies, but you can do the same type of report for all these other geographies here. And we just feel that this helps you tailor your message, the message that you want to tell with your data to a variety of different audiences. So finally, if you would like to see a little more information about the sources, you can go to the About the Data tab. You can read more about where we get the data from, about the innovation index. And then finally, we give you access to additional resources from government sources. So that completes the demo portion of today's webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to Carol, and we will facilitate the feedback portion. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. And we've got a nice crowd here today. I've already put a message in the chat box encouraging everyone to share their feedback